Now that your Fuse build has finished, it must go through another very important step to success: cooling. SLS printed parts are sensitive to sudden and drastic temperature changes. After printing, the print job needs to cool in the build chamber to alleviate thermal stresses in the printed parts in a controlled environment. Parts that are not allowed to properly cool become warped and brittle and may fail under load. The Fuse print enclosure is designated to operate up to 200 degrees Celsius, 392 degrees Fahrenheit, and incorporates high-intensity heaters. Do not open the print enclosure or any other access doors on the printer during or immediately after a print. Do not handle parts from a build chamber without allowing the entire print enclosure to cool for several hours, or until the build chamber temperature has reached less than 100 degrees Celsius or 212 degrees Fahrenheit. Use the provided thermal insulating silicone gloves when handling a hot build chamber. Failure to follow these procedures will result in serious injuries, including burning and/or scalding of skin. Whenever possible, it is recommended to leave the build chamber inside the Fuse until it has cooled completely. You can find the full cooling time listed in Preform's job summary section. When the cooling process is finished, powder recovery can begin immediately. In high production environments, it may be more efficient to remove a build chamber before it has finished cooling, move it to the sift, and insert a fresh build chamber to start the next print. In this case, you may remove the build chamber once it is at or below 100 degrees Celsius, 212 degrees Fahrenheit, as indicated on the touchscreen. As a general guideline, it takes approximately 30 to 50% of the print time for the build chamber to cool to 100 degrees Celsius. For example, a 10-hour print will take approximately 5 hours post-print to cool to 100 degrees Celsius. Once you have moved it to the sift, the touchscreen will show the build chamber as hot until the chamber has fully cooled. Once cooled, the touchscreen will change the indicator to ready, and post-processing can begin. Do not eject the powder cake while it is still in the hot state, as handling hot parts could cause injury or damage to the sift. To transfer a build chamber, open the print enclosure door. Press the button on the build chamber latch to release it. To make the transfer easier, also press the button on the build chamber latch on your sift. Unplug the build chamber plug from the printer and insert it into the build chamber holster. Using the front handle, pull the build chamber out until you can easily access the side handles. Grasp both side handles and slide the build chamber out of the enclosure. Lift and carry the chamber to your sift. Use personal caution as a full build chamber could weigh up to 50 to 60 pounds. Do not brace a hot chamber against your legs or body. If moving the chamber is difficult, consider a heat-resistant cart for transporting the chamber between the Fuse and the sift. Place the upper lip of the build chamber onto the rails in the Fuse sift, with the build chamber plug facing out. Firmly push the build chamber into place until it hits a hard stop. Close the build chamber latch and move the build chamber plug from the holster to the adjacent socket. Check the status on the touchscreen. If the status reads as ready, you're ready to unpack your build. Your printed parts are surrounded by unsintered powder in the build chamber. This block of sintered and unsintered powder is known as the powder cake. To get started unpacking your build, press the light button on the control panel of the sift. This turns on the light and vents the workspace. On the touchscreen, tap Unpack to lift the print bed and eject the entire powder cake. You can also use the arrow buttons on the control panel to manually eject the cake. Hold the button for controlled incremental ejection, or press once to eject the entire build. After lifting the powder cake out of the build chamber with the Fuse Sift, extract your parts from the powder cake. Move the majority of the cake to the center of the workspace. Tap Sift on the Fuse Sift touchscreen or push the Sift button on the control panel. The workspace vibrates, causing loose powder to fall through the grate and into the sieve below. Parts can be cleaned off using the provided tools that come with the Fuse Sift. A large scrubbing brush for large or well-buried parts, a double-sided brush with a medium and small head, a set of wire brushes for cleaning out cavities, slots, tubes, or hard-to-reach features, and picks best for removing powder from pockets, seams, or channels. Cleaned parts can be placed in the basket that sits to the right of the workspace. Once you have sifted all of the powder, clean your workspace of any remaining powder. The print bed and build chamber must be free of all powder before beginning the next print. Push the vac button on the control panel or tap the vacuum hose icon on the Fuse Sift touchscreen. Vacuum the loose powder inside the workspace and under the hood. Vacuum any remaining powder on the print bed and the surrounding port. Push the vac button on the control panel or tap the vacuum hose icon on the Fuse Sift touchscreen to turn off the vacuum. Now that you've finished post-processing, you're ready to make your next refreshed mix. Similar to how you filled the fuse for the first time, you'll use the powder cartridge. With the powder cartridge inserted and the valve knife open, set the refresh rate on the touchscreen. Tap Fill. The Fuse Sift dispenses powder into the inserted cartridge. If one or both hoppers do not have enough powder, the Sift will alert you to check on the level of your hoppers. After approximately 1 minute, the cartridge is filled and the vacuum turns off. Close the valve knife and pull the cartridge out of the drawer. Since the powder is layered when dispensed from the hoppers, the cartridge needs to be mixed to ensure even powder distribution. With the cartridge valve facing the Sift, slide the cartridge onto the mixer on the right side of the Sift until the locking tabs click into place around the cartridge. On the touchscreen, tap Mix Time. Use the touchscreen to adjust the amount of time that the Sift will mix the powder. Formlabs recommends mixing for at least 10 minutes to ensure that the powder mixture is homogeneous. Tap Mix to begin mixing. Once mixing is complete, eject the cartridge. Pry the 2 blue tabs outward with your thumbs and lift the cartridge up with the handles. After basic cleaning, media blasting is required to fully depowder an SLS part. This is particularly useful for cleaning the semi-sintered surface armor out of negative features, which can be hard to reach with a brush. Consider the Fuse Blast, Formlabs' automated media blasting solution, or a manual media blaster using glass bead media to achieve clean and ready-to-use parts. Now that we've completed the core workflow for the Fuse and Sift, let's go over the maintenance for the Fuse printer to keep it in the best working condition.